cars behind those first 12 in row number 7, Rick Mast and Joe Thurman, a bunch of 4s in that row. In the 8th row, that's 15th and 16th starting positions, Ron Bouchard. This is not the V6 this week. That is a V8. He said he needs the extra horses for this racetrack. And Mike Swaim out of the Darlington Dash Series. In row number 9, another Darlington Dash graduate, Ed Barrier in car number 60, and Ronnie Silver in the Coors Silver Bullet, number 14. The 10th row, Rodney Howard in car number 24, and the man for whom Sam Ard now works as crew chief, Charlie Luck, in car number 45. In row number 11, Tommy Houston. He qualified back here in 21st, but he says he's going to be faster. And in car number 58, the man who we have become to be accustomed to seeing running dirt racing, Merv Treichler. In row number 12, Larry Pollard, the converted Canadian, now running down here in the States. And car number 2, Jeff Hensley. In the 13th row, Rick Wilson out of Florida, and Bosco Lowe driving a car number 06, which we have not seen yet on ESPN this year. Eddie Falk and Larry Walker, cars number 04 and 82, make up the 14th row. And the 15th row, that completes the 30th fastest cars, Kenny Bouchard, the brother of Ron, in car number 65, and John Linville in car number 62. 16th row, car number 29, Tim McGuire, car number 88, Ken Knight. In row number 17, yep, we're going to start 40 here this week. Kirk Bryant, he's won an ARCA race this year in this car in 02, and car number 09, Willis Blemons. In the 18th row, Mitch Clark in car number 39, and in 93 on the outside, Phil Smith. Philip Smith, a modified racer. Row number 19, Stuart Huffman was scheduled to go here in car number 52. Rodney Boucher, who ran here in the spring in car number 55, is on the outside. And the 20th and final row on the inside, Johnny Talley in car number 78 and Billy Hogan in car number 73. Now, we understand from the pit area that there has been a couple of changes in regards to driver assignments, and I think Jack Arute is down in the pits on top of it. Jack?
Well, Larry, you were addressing the issue about 2 sons of Grand National drivers starting on the same row. That won't be the case today. You see, Ned Jarrett's son, and that would be Dale Jarrett, was supposed to start there, but he lost 2 push rods in his motor, and he has over 40 minutes more worth of work, so he couldn't make it to the starting grid. Stuart Huffman, knowing that Jarrett is embroiled in that Busch late model sportsman points drive, elected to give up his seat in the race car. And Benny Parsons can maybe react to this. I think maybe he smiled a little bit about the opportunity not to travel around the track that's too tough to tame. But Jarrett will start shotgun on the field in Stuart Huffman's number 51.
Well, I think that Stuart Huffman is probably very glad to get Dale Jarrett in his car, because Dale Jarrett is a very good race car driver, and he'll be able to find out just what kind of car he does have. Today we have radio communication with the pole sitter, Tim Richmond, and there is one more lap to go before the green flag. We'll try to take this opportunity to find out from Tim Richmond about his problem he had. Tim Richmond, this is Benny Parsons in ESPN Control. Do you read me?
Yes, sir, Benny Parsons. I hear you. Go ahead.
Tim, what type of problem did you have a moment ago? We saw the car jacked up.
We had left rear tire equalized before while we were sitting there, both the inner liner and outer liner equalized, and they had to go ahead and change it.
How was the car in practice this morning?
Very smooth, very fast. The car was handling terrific. If it stays like that all day, we'll have a good shot at it.
Is there anybody out there that can beat you coming off your record qualifying run?
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of them back there behind me that's plenty capable, and they've got the equipment too. They run real fast in practice, so there's a lot of them back there. It's not going to be any cakewalk, I can tell you that.
Green flag's coming up, Tim. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
40 late model sportsman cars, some of them regular, some of them Grand National interlopers, ready to take on the Lady in Black, the famed Lady in Black, the Darlington International Raceway. Tim Richmond bringing the field around very carefully. You can see 2 lanes are marked out. That's about all the wider this racetrack is. The green flag is out, and the late model sportsman race at Darlington is underway. Richmond, the man who comes into this race batting 1,000. He's entered 1 race of the late model sportsman this year, that being at Charlotte, and he won it. He set a brand new track record here. He led the most laps at Charlotte. He immediately asserts himself as the driver to beat. And we have a spin developing in turn number 3.
That's Rick Mast. Rick Mast. All the cars did miss him. I don't think there was any contact at all up in that corner. And the caution flag is not out. It is not out.
There is Rick Maston, car number 44. He's been a guy who's been very strong in late model sportsman racing this year. He's had a block full of second-place finishes. He lost control momentarily going into turn number 3, and as we told you just before the green flag drop, there are only 2 lanes, and if you get out of them, you have no margin for error. There just isn't anything you can do. Usually the car gets away from you.
Actually, at speed, Larry, there isn't room but for one car to go through there at speed. And that's the problem. Sometimes these cars try to go through two abreast. It just cannot be done.
Joe Ruttman right now in that bright Folgers red number 7 is the man who is pressuring Tim Richmond. Ruttman was involved in that spectacular crash a week ago at Bristol, and right now, Ruttman is definitely moving faster than Richmond. He goes to the inside.
He's under him. He has him coming off turn 4. As I said, you can't run side by side. Tim Richmond had no choice but back off. Ruttman had position. Tim Richmond gave him the spot.
Joe Ruttman is a man who has never won a Grand National stock car race. He has not won one of these LMS races this year. He's run up near the front a number of times. Here he is again putting the work on Tim Richmond.
Joe Ruttman's car working extremely well this early in the race, but it's too early to really tell how the car is going to be as the race wears on.
Now remember back in the spring, Brad Teague, one of the LMS regulars, was the guy who looked like he was headed for victory until Harry Gannon, relief for Jack Ingram, almost came out of the woods and surprised
Turn
Jeff.
4, turn 3 and 4. There's a car spinning.
That's Ed Berry on the screen. He looks like he has a flat tire. You can see him swishing back and forth, trying to bring the car under control. Ed doing a fine job keeping that car off the wall. Ed Berrier in car number 60, and the car number 89 of Mike Swain was also involved in that. A couple of guys who have dueled against each other many times in the Darlington Dash Series.
Oh, these fellows have raced for years and years, so racing each other certainly isn't anything new, but the cars are new. This is Berrier's and Mike Swain's, I think, their second year in Busch Late Model Sportsman Series. Jack Arute is down with Mike Swain in his fifth.
It looks to be mostly sheet metal damage. They're exchanging some tires, Benny and Larry. But here's the deal. They've got flats on the front, not only on the right side, but over here on the left side. They've flat-spotted tires. Now, remember, the problem here is that there's a rule in effect in late model sportsman competition. You can only change 2 tires during a caution. So it's going to be a tough and a very difficult promise right now, to make these changes for Mike Swain. Good thing it's happening under caution.
Well, the reason for that rule is to keep the cost down. A lot of these guys are weekend warriors. They have full-time jobs during the week, and racing is sort of a hobby, sort of a profession for them. And if you limit the number of tires they can change, it keeps the cost kind of equalized for everybody.
Well, that's what they're trying to do, is to keep the cost of racing down, because those tires are $150 a piece. Mighty expensive, Larry.
Well, a caution flag in the early stages of the Darlington Raceway race for the late model sportsman regulars. Tim Richmond right now is beginning to look invincible. A couple of the Darlington Dash graduates have been involved in this caution flag, but no wall contact, no serious incident.
You know, there are more and more places today where you can't smoke, like here on the job. But when I want tobacco pleasure, I still make out like a bandit with these Skoal Bandits. Skoal Bandits is tobacco in a neat little pouch. You don't chew it. You just put one between your cheek and gum and enjoy the refreshing taste wherever you are. My choice is wintergreen. The mint goes over big, too. When you can't smoke, you can still make out like a bandit with Skoal Bandits, the little pouch of tobacco pleasure.
To fully understand how Goodyear Eagle high-performance tires alter the driving experience, we urge you to read the Special Operator's Manual before you drive. The information it contains may contribute significantly to the performance of the properly equipped car. Goodyear Eagles. The tires engineered for cars with the proper qualifications.
ESPN's The Driving Force tomorrow. First, Bill Elliott goes after $1 million bonus at NASCAR's Southern 500. See if he succeeds live. Then the fastest IndyCar drivers hit the track. See the race to the finish at CART's Mid-Ohio 200. ESPN sets the pace tomorrow.
I'm with Ed Berrier. He's behind pit wall now. Ed, what happened in that wreck up there?
Mike Swain come under me going into the fourth corner down there, and I tried to get out of his way, and when he went to the apron, he bounced back up in front of me and got me sideways, and I got in the wall, and it broke the fanhard bar on the back end, so like we'll be out for the day. I'd like to give thanks to Lou Horton that helped us get here today, and we'd had a fine run to possibly get some good sponsorship. It looked like everything was going good for us down here, but we had some problems with another car. So.
Short day and with another.
What you're looking at is a flat tire, but what's important about it is we always talk on the air about flat spotting a tire when you lock up the brakes, and especially here at Darlington. Well, here's exactly what happens. You rub all of the rubber off, go right through the fabric, and you end up with a hole in your tire and no air, and that's exactly what happened to Mike Swaim on the left front.
Earlier, the subject of equalizing tires came up, Benny, and we might talk a little bit about that. All these cars here run inner liners, and that inner liner has to have enough pressure to push up against the outside wall, right?
That's exactly right. The tire that you see on the outside of these race cars, Larry, is in fact three pieces. There's an outer tire and an inner tire, and in that inner tire is a tube, and that's what keeps the pressure on the inner tire. And they keep 20 pounds of air pressure more in the inner tire than the outside tire to keep it pressed out against the rim. But what happens when the tube leaks, the pressure becomes equalized. In other words, if the pressure is the same in the inside and outside, therefore the inside tire flops around and vibrates terribly. We're back to green flag.
Joe Ruttman, Dale Earnhardt, making a sandwich of the fast qualifier Tim Richmond right now. Darrell Waltrip, who started the race in
Lone Edge of turn one.
Near the back of the pack, we can't see exactly, and apparently oil on the racetrack. A couple of cars spinning down there. It's difficult to tell exactly who it was. We think it was the number 93 of Philip Smith. There he is. Sure he is, coming down the backstretch with the telltale sign of smoke, probably a blown engine coming out of the exhaust headers. The caution flag will come back out on the speedways again as Smith continues around, although he's dropped well down to the racing groove going down the backstretch. Philip is a guy who runs modifieds down here in the South, and everybody, of course, would like to graduate someday to Grand National racing. There is Philip. You can see him losing that engine going down the front stretch into turn number 2. Some spinning cars behind him, but nobody makes any contact. Probably slippery going down there in turn number 1. So we are under caution for the second time in the early stages of this race here. After Richmond started on the pole, Joe Ruttman kind of put it to him.
He did, but you know, right now, Tim Richmond is back in the lead, and Dale Earnhardt is second place. And Larry, in Grand National racing, they race back to the caution flag. These cars were X'd in turn 2 when the caution flag came out. Now, under the rules, they race back to the start-finish line before a position is determined. And both Richmond and Earnhardt beat Joe Ruttman back to the line. So right now, Joe Ruttman is the third-place car.
So the Grand National stars are dominating this race so far. But it's a long race. The late model sportsman regulars are very good at races exactly like this, so stay with us. Completed Richmond is the leader, as we told you, just before break, followed by Earnhardt and Ruttman. The 4th through 6th positions belong to Darrell Waltrip, Brad Teague, and Jack Ingram. The remaining top 10, by the way, Brett Hearn, Rusty Wallace, Larry Pearson, and Jimmy Hensley.
We talked to Tim Richmond early on just before the race started. He was passed by Joe Ruttman. Let's get his viewpoint on what happened. Tim Richmond, this is Benny Parsons in ESPN Control. Do you read us?
Go ahead, Benny. I got you.
Joe Ruttman passed you on the racetrack and made it look fairly easy. Is he that strong, Tim?
He's pretty strong. We changing that left rear tire, put our, and the car's just now starting to come in. The Stanger's starting to get a little bit right now.
I see you've got Dale Earnhardt behind you. This kind of like last week. Remember last week?
Yeah, do I ever remember last week? I'm going to have to try to run fast enough so I can't get up here and put the medal on me. We're going to go now, Benny. See you later.
Okay, babe.
Well, last week at Bristol in the Grand National stock car race, Richmond grabbed the lead after some confusing pit stops late in the race, and Earnhardt came in and used strong-arm tactics, but all legal, and moved underneath Tim Richmond and won the Grand National race. Green flag again. You can see there are 2, maybe 3 grooves around this racetrack. Joe Ruttman has moved around Earnhardt. Richmond gets away with about a 10 or 11 car length advantage, Benny, and runs out front kind of comfortably right now.
Tim Richmond so far on the start of the race and the caution flag extremely well, getting a good jump on these cars, and that just might be important when it comes down to try to win the race.
Early on here, Ruttman does look strong. Now, he lost the lead during a yellow flag, and oftentimes, particularly here at Darlington, when you see a yellow light, you may have a tendency, Benny, to slow down just a little more at Darlington or a place like Bristol than you would at one of the other big tracks because it's so easy to get in trouble.
It is easy to get in trouble, and the visibility is very poor. Those cars right now cannot see the front straightaway. Now they can see the front straightaway, but if there is trouble, if the racetrack were to be blocked next in turn 4, they would have no choice but run into the wreck area because they can't see in front of them.
That red and white car there in 4th position is Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip qualified in 6th position, better than 152 miles per hour average speed. Richmond sat at the pole at 155.7, and Waltrip is really keeping up the pace. Right now, Ruttman looks like he may have the strength to get around and perhaps underneath Richmond, and Waltrip looks like he may be the fastest of the quartet.
Darrell Waltrip, extremely good run for him. He has raced in several sportsman races this year, late model sportsman races, but he has not excelled in this racing like he has in Grand National. Today looks like an exception.
There have been 10 different winners in 19 races on the late model sportsman trail in 1985. It's become one of the most competitive series in all of America this season. Richmond has a win. Ruttman does not, as we mentioned. Earnhardt does have 1 win in late model sportsman racing, and Waltrip also has 2 wins. So everybody except Ruttman, among those 4 running up front right now, have been winners so far in this type of racing this season. Here comes Waltrip.
He's on the inside. Earnhardt comes down the hill. Waltrip just wasn't quite far enough to be able to take the position away from Earnhardt.
This racetrack, if you can imagine the shape of an egg, that's pretty much what it's like. Dick Bergen, along with Jack Arut, of course, walking up and down and trying to keep tabs of everything that's happening down in the pit area. And Dick, you got something.
Yeah, I do, Larry. What's happening is we've got very hot and humid temperatures today. That's very different than yesterday when it was much cooler and the cars were set up. What's apparently happened is the majority of the cars, a significant number at least, have gotten very loose. That means the rear end is trying to pass the front end. That's what they were doing to Ottinger's car early when he had to make the pit stop. Harry Hyde says his cars are running a little bit loose too. So we can look to see some changes when the first pit stop, which will probably also, by the way, be the last stop, takes place. Right now, many of the cars are a handful, though.
Dick, I just keep getting that good information because that's the information I need for tomorrow. I've got to run 500 miles tomorrow, and guys, give me all the help you can get down
now,
here.
Now, wait a minute. We've already been criticized so much this year for special inside information. Rusty Wallace began this race in 11th position. Now, he's won late model sportsman races with the All-American Series and also ASA, and Wallace is now in 7th and seemingly on the move. Rusty Wallace just put the hammerlock on Brett Bodine, got to the inside of him, moved around, and since he passed him, Benny, he looks like he is ascending toward the top.
He's going right to the front. Rusty Wallace have an excellent run. Along with all the Grand National drivers, we can just see how important the experience is because the Grand National drivers are going right to the front of this race.
Well, Benny, the weather this week, and there they are approaching slower traffic already. We're only at about lap 19. We're on the 20th lap right now. It really makes an added difference this week. The weather has been bad, and so the guys with lots of experience are really at an advantage.
That's exactly right, because there hasn't been enough experience for the late model sportsman drivers. Rusty Wallace trying Jack Ingram. Ingram, his car won the race. Wallace is underneath him up in turns 3 and 4. Ingram has no choice but back off. He does. Lets Wallace have the position.
Rusty Wallace, a man who came up in 1980, and one of his biggest wins in his very early career, his almost teenage career, was in this type of racing, the late model sportsman car. It looked like he was going to be the next world beater in terms of stock car and full-bodied racing. The career tapered off just a little bit, but now he is a solid Grand National racer. There is Brett Bodine. Yes, he still runs consistently in the top 10. Bodine is being shown as in 8th position right now. There's the leader, his teammate, Tim Richmond. The cars are painted exactly alike. Richmond is numbered 15, and Bodine right there is numbered 5. That's Ingram right in front of him.
Brett Bodine. It's a good run for Brett Bodine because I don't know, this may be the first time he's been to Darlington, at least not more than twice.
And you know something else, Benny? If I could pick any one guy in the racetrack to follow, particularly the first half of the race, I think I'd tack right on Ingram's bumper because no matter what's going on in the race, Ingram has the ability to be around at the end, and he's always got a shot at winning, it seems.
Yes, Jack Ingram has an ability to win. He knows what it takes to win.
Here comes Ron Bouchard in that blue and white car. Bouchard is in 9th and getting ready to do battle for 8th and maybe 7th. Remember Bouchard, he won twice here last year, and he's won a number of these late model sportsman races and led them. There is brother Jeff Bodine watching Brett on the racetrack, but Bouchard has done well in this type of racing. Jeff?
One of the things to remember, gentlemen, as Benny alluded to, is the fact that Brett Bodine doesn't have a lot of super speedway experience. The weather didn't help him at all. He told me he only had 4 hot competitive laps before he went out to qualify. I asked him before the start of the race, well, then what's your battle plan? He said it's real important that I follow the top guns. I want to learn this racetrack because that's all I want to do in this race. How about you, Dick Bergeron? You got some more comments down here?
Yeah, I've been watching Ronnie Bouchard, Jack, and he's working his way up through the field. He should. Yesterday, when they went out to qualify, they really had a problem. They had a new crew member, told them to put a set of 422 gears in. The young man looked at the tag, picked 422.85, put him in the car. Turned out to be a Martinsville set of gears, not a Darlington set of gears. It was made on April 22nd, 1985. Then they've been working very hard all morning. Bouchard was the last car to the line, the last car to fire up. Very frustrated crew trying to get him out there, so he's going to work his way up, but it's not been his kind of Darlington for sure.
Well, Dick, whatever they did, it's working because we have been watching Ron Bouchard while both you and Jeff were giving us reports from the pit area. Here comes Ingram back to the inside of Bouchard. Well, that only lasted just a brief second, but Bouchard has been picking them up and laying them down. He's running in 7th position, but I don't know that that's really an indication how fast he's going right now. He looks to be as quick as almost anybody in the racetrack, Benny.
He is quick, and again, the Grand National driver, he knows how to get around this racetrack. Does an excellent job getting around the racetrack. You know, Darrell Waltrip just a moment ago was right on the bumper of the 3 leaders. He has fallen back. I don't know. I didn't watch how he got so far behind. I don't know if it was in a traffic situation or if it was simply because the car is not handling right now.
Okay, just to update you, that second car in line, that first yellow car, that is the leader, Tim Richmond. There is Joe Ruttman following through as they go to the inside of Rodney Howard. Running in 3rd in the blue and yellow car is Dale Earnhardt. 4th is Waltrip, as Benny mentioned. Rusty Wallace is holding 4th. In 5th, Brad Teague is 6th. Ron Bouchard is a charging 7th. In 8th position, the number 11 of Jack Ingram. Brett Bodine is 9th, and Jimmy Hensley is 10th. Joe Ruttman looks just for a split second to the inside of Richmond, but they're going around slower traffic, no room. Now remember that Richmond qualified at better than 155 miles an hour. That was 31.583 seconds. Benny, that's what, a top speed of maybe 165 around here?
Probably 165, 170 miles an hour. Right now, I think they probably would be lucky to run a 33-second flat lap, which would be, about 150 miles an hour, 148, 149 miles an hour is about what I would expect him to run right now, simply because of the traffic.
The traffic, he's got about a half a load of fuel. Let's see if he times in at. What'd you say he was going to time in at?
33 flat.
Well, their rival Sam Posey a couple years ago predicting that Al Hobart would finish 4th in the Indianapolis 500. Meanwhile, Ron Bouchard, there he is in the white and blue number 47. Remember, Tim Richmond timed at 33 seconds flat for 1 lap. We've been watching Bouchard beginning his climb up toward the top. Let's see if he was running faster. By the way, a couple laps ago, if you were watching real closely, when he went underneath Jack Ingram, you and I saw metal fly.
Oh, yes. They have to rub going into turn 3. There's just hardly any way to get around without rubbing. Now, Bouchard is passing that slow car. That may affect him just a little bit, but no more than, say, a 1/10 of a second a lap.
33 seconds, in effect, the time to beat. Let's see if he can do it. Well, Bouchard running about on par with Richmond, but as Benny pointed out, that slower traffic, that, by the way, is an average speed of 147.7 miles per hour. That might have been just enough to rob him of 0.3 of a second.
Yes. Here, Richmond is putting a little distance on Joe Ruttman. This is the largest lead that anyone has had today, and Richmond now has about a 10-car advantage over Joe Ruttman.
As we mentioned to you, Richmond only ran that one race, and if memory serves me correctly, he led something like 150 laps in that race down at Charlotte, and that's the only one he has entered. Now, Darrell Waltrip has continued to be competitive. He runs in 4th position. No panic here. We've seen Waltrip do this many times. He may be running exactly the race he wants.
He may be, because Darrell Waltrip is probably one of the smartest race car drivers on that track today. He will run the car hard as anyone out there. But if he isn't able to run the car hard, he will take his time. Jack Arute has his crew chief, Eddie Jones. He'll be able to find out if he has a problem. Jack?
Eddie, we were talking in the telecast about the car beginning to slow down. And we also were addressing the issue about the heat and things getting loose for the race drivers. What's the problem with Darrell?
Right now, we're still getting our race setup worked out. The car's just a little loose. There's nothing that's unusual, nothing real bad. It's something we have to work out on our pit stop.
Where do you make the changes? Are you and Darrell begun to address that issue on the radio on what you'll do in that one pit stop?
That's right. It just depends on how bad the car is and what it needs. And we discuss it before he comes in, and as he comes in, he makes a last-minute decision himself where he wants to change things. He's on the right front or left rear, and we do it right there in the wedge bolts. Well, as Dick Bergeron told us, loose may be the story here today.
Without any more substantial caution flags, as we take a look at Darrell Waltrip, the guys are maybe more than halfway toward their first series of pit stops. We have completed 33 laps. 74 laps equates to 100 miles here on this racetrack. 20 cars remain on the lead lap. Tim Richmond took the lead back from Joe Ruttman. He leads. Richmond, Joe Ruttman, Dale Earnhardt, the first three. 4th through 6th, Darrell Waltrip, Rusty Wallace, and Brad Teague. Stay with us. Certainly college football in 1985, one of the most exciting sports that this country can see this season, of course. There we are. We didn't think we'd be donning these when the day began, these sunglasses, and this guy standing here to my right, your left. You're not going to be up here tomorrow. You're going to be working tomorrow down there, right?
Down on the racetrack, running the Southern 500.
Certainly one of the most storied races of all time in America, the Southern 500. Tomorrow, the 36th annual Southern 500 here from Darlington, and of course, the big story, Bill Elliott in his quest for the Winston Million. If he wins that race, and you know, Benny, even if he loses, I got to believe that that race may be the biggest story of the decade. Century may be stretching a little bit, but that's a big day tomorrow for Bill Elliott and all of stock car racing.
I tell you one thing, there's going to have to be something's going to have to really go for a bigger story in the 1980s than Bill Elliott with a chance to win $1 million. Because we've had people turned on, the media turned on to motorsports like never before.
Well, live tomorrow at 1 p.m., the Southern 500 and Bill Elliott, and that run for $1 million. Tim Richmond continues to lead here. We told you earlier that Richmond is one of the winners of 1985. 39 laps officially have been completed. 100 miles here works out to 74 laps. In optimum situations, 100 miles should not be too much of a problem for you to go on a load of fuel. Richmond, from time to time, has seen Joe Ruttman creep up as they've gone through heavy traffic. But you can see right there, the interval, Richmond, when they get a clear track in front of him, really opens up.
He really does. He opens up. And that means when Joe is able to close up in traffic, that means that Tim is taking his time through traffic there. He's just picking his way through there because he knows he has a car that's very strong, and why give it away? Why go in there and crash the car when you don't have to? Take your time.
Charlie Luck in car number 45 is running in 10th position right now and holding back one of the guys who is fencing for the points championship of 1985, Jimmy Hensley. He's had a 2 or 3 week period that seems almost down, Benny Hensley.
Well, he's been to racetracks that are not good racetracks for Jimmy Hensley. This is not a good racetrack for Jimmy Hensley. He's probably a 20-year veteran in racing, but most of his experience has come on the 3rd mile, the half-mile, flat half-mile asphalt. Certainly nothing like Bristol and Darlington. This is a tough racetrack for Jimmy Hensley, and also Charlie Luck, a newcomer, I think hitting about his 3rd season. So basically 2 inexperienced drivers out here just trying to do their best today.
Well, back in the 1960s and 70s, that man right there, Jimmy Hensley, it was pretty common for him to win 20, 25 races a year. And as Benny mentioned, many of those came on the short tracks, the Saturday night racetracks. Jack Arute with an update on the Jimmy Hensley situation. Jack?
Well, I'm down here with Morgan Shepherd, who is in the Thomas Brothers Country Hams pit. Morgan, you're going to relieve Jimmy Hensley, we understand.
Yeah, Jimmy's not feeling very good, so boys asked me if I would set in for him, and so we're waiting for a caution.
Any concerns on your part having to strap yourself into a car without a lot of practice time in a Sportsman?
No, not really. I went over and sat down in the car, and I fit pretty good in it. And, you know, I run a lot of laps during Grand National and all, so no concern at all.
You know, the last time a late model Sportsman driver a Grand National driver relieved another Sportsman driver was in the spring, and that car went on to win here at Darlington. Do you think about that when you get ready to get in?
Yeah, I'm ready to repeat that.
That's the story from the Jimmy Hensley pits, gentlemen.
Well, they're certainly not giving away anything in the category of talent. Morgan Shepherd won a lot of these races. He's on the top 10 list of all-time winners. He has run here at Darlington. He has won in Grand Nationals, won in late model Sportsman. He got a shot if the caution flags fall just right.
He does. The problem he has right now, he's going to have to come back from a one-lap deficit because the Tim Richmond car has put the Jimmy Hensley car, the 00, a lap down. So he has a problem right now making that lap up against competition like Tim Richmond.
As a matter of fact, Richmond is working his way through the top 15. He just lapped Tommy Houston running 14th. There he goes to the outside of Hensley. He's lapped Joe Thurman, the former two-time national champion. Thurman is running in 13th spot, and he's working on, no, he's gotten around Larry Pearson. So here we are, only 45 laps of a race in Darlington. We expect to have a lot of caution flags. Normally a lot of people stay in the lead lap because there's so many pauses in the action, but Richmond is gunning them all down like target practice.
Oh, he is just going today. But it's 200 miles. It's a long way to go. A lot of things can happen in a car race. You have to run the distance before you can win the race. That's for sure.
He goes to the high side of Charlie Luck in the Luck Stone car. Charlie has become a regular. I think we commented in the race last week they are picking and choosing their races. That is not exactly true. By the way, 123 mile per hour average speed at this point in the race. Charlie took a couple races off in the middle of the year when Sam Ard joined up with him. They rebuilt the cars, kind of put them together to Ard specifications, and that's the reason why they missed out running 2-3 races in the middle of the season, but they plan on running all the races yet this season.
Tim Richmond.
There is Dale Earnhardt, Darrell Waltrip. The gap between the two of them is closed up. That's third and fourth position.
Darrell is coming on. I think that Darrell is dropping back just a little bit, but Earnhardt is dropping back even faster. Darrell's a little quicker right now, but passionate Darlington can be tough.
Dale Earnhardt coming off really a spectacular weekend. The wins have come very hard for everybody except Bill Elliott in the 1985 season on the Grand National Trail. And Earnhardt last week not only won, but he was smashing in more ways than one.
He was very strong last week.
Tim Richmond will continue to lead this race. We anticipate in the next 15 minutes everybody coming in for pit stops. If it happens under green flags, it could really change the complexion of this race. So stay with us from Darlington International Raceway. We are under yellow flag, a minor incident. Rodney Fouché, one of the drivers who every once in a while ventures into late model sportsman racing, spun between turns 1 and 2. No contact with any other cars or the outside or inside wall. Everybody will take this opportunity. There is Rodney coming to a halt in the pit area, getting a fresh supply of fuel and a change of a couple of tires. Everybody will be taking this opportunity to come in. 52 laps have been completed, a little earlier than anticipated, but this is a good time for everybody to come in, and Jack Arute is in Darrell Waltrip's pit.
And Darrell Waltrip has one of the most unusual methods of changing tires. Late model sportsman drivers are only allowed to use one lug wrench. So what they do is they take the lug wrench to the right rear, take the tire off. Very shortly they'll toss the wrench over to Eddie Jones. There you saw it. Jones goes to work on the right front. They'll make the exchange of that tire and then watch where the lug wrench goes when Jones is completed. They'll put those lug nuts, all 5 of them, back on that right front tire and get ready, and they'll be just about done. There goes the lug wrench to the back. They'll finish up the job and drop the jack in what has to be one of the most unusual techniques we've ever seen.
As long as they don't start throwing the jack back and forth, I'm going to be I think I'll be impressed anyway.
That lug wrench is about 5 pounds. That jack is about 80 pounds. So it probably weighs as much as Jack Arute, as a matter of fact.
5 pounds, and it's also a very expensive item. By the way, the driver change is taking place right now in the 00 car. There's the move again as they're changing tires on Darrell Waltrip's car. Now watch the lug wrench on the right front.
Eddie Jones gets through, just tosses it back to the rear man. Now a lot of guys, what will happen is one fellow will do all that work. He will take the lug nuts off the right rear. He will run to the right front. he will take the lug nuts off the right front, change that tire, and while he's doing that, someone else will put the tire on the right rear.
Red Bodine is now on pit road, and they've got the right side of the car jacked up. They're also pushing the rear spoiler forward. That's to get a little more rear bite. A little while earlier, Joe Redmond came in, and they pushed his spoiler down to get rid of some bite. Meanwhile, there's absolutely nothing going on in Tim Richmond's pit. They're not even ready for him to come in at this point. So a little different strategy for Tim Richmond than almost everybody else. And Bodine is done. He's on his way out.
A little different, Benny, and very surprising. Why has he not taken the opportunity so far? This is a minor caution flag. There's no guarantee, really, that we're going to go 3 or 4 more laps under yellow.
I really don't know. I don't understand. Maybe Jack Arute has something for us. Jack?
We were talking about the Boucher incident, but another driver that was involved in it was Larry Pearson in car number 21. Pearson came into the pits, and this was the #1 tool they brought over the wall. It's a pry bar. They thought maybe, and I repeat maybe, some of the sheet metal was rubbing up against the tires. His brother, Eddie Pearson, went to the side, got ready to pry it off, but it wasn't the situation. So he's back in the race, but he's well down in the back of the pack.
Darlington International Raceway. The lady in black just has not struck, thankfully, yet. It's been a smooth race up to now. 3 minor caution flags. The Grand National regulars seem to be dominating this race, but we still have a long ways to go.
Decision maker. Harry, why did you not pit when everybody else did?
Tim and I talked about it, and we're only 50 laps into the race, and we got about another 100 to go. We're still running as good a clock speed as we were when we started out, and we just thought it was a little bit too early to come in and pit. 1 to go, Tim, and we decided to stay out there and sweat out another caution. I think that's better than getting behind some of the slow cars right now.
And that's why Tim Richmond did not pit on that round when everybody else did.
Even so, it still seems like a calculated risk. Pit stops, of course, are very important in all types of racing, and particularly in stock car racing. A race like this, you have to stop. It takes on added significance here at Darlington.
In Grand National Racing, we're used to seeing pit stops with 2 air wrenches. But in late model sportsman competition, the competitors are restricted to the use of 1 air wrench. So pit stops take on a quality that looks like organized mayhem, but actually, it's controlled ballet. Let's look again in slow motion. The wrench man loosens the lugs on the rear tire and then moves quickly to the front where he makes the tire change in 1 complete motion. While he works the front, a tire carrier moves to the rear of the car, changes the tire, and begins to tighten the new lug nuts. Mission completed up front, the wrench man moves once again to the back and tightens the rear lug nuts, and the pit stop is completed. It looks a little awkward, but when it's done right, it's real quick and a lot of fun to watch.
We've gone back to green, and Benny, watching that, it makes you wonder when you call the local station, why do they say bring it in on Wednesday, you can have it back on Friday? It didn't take that long.
No, these fellows know exactly what they're doing. They do it time and time again. They know exactly what they're doing. And like anything, the more you do it, the more proficient you get at it.
Tim Richmond with the calculated pit strategy risk leads this race. Rusty Wallace has climbed to second. That black yellow numeral 66 is Wallace. Remember, we told you in the early part of the race, we saw him coming. He hasn't run as high as second at any time, but really getting in and out in fine fashion. Earnhardt runs in 3rd. Ruttman is 4th. Bouchard is 5th. Waltrip is 6th. Teague is 7th. Brett Bodine is 8th. And Jimmy Hensley is 9th. Those are the 9 cars on the lead lap.
Earnhardt tried Rusty Wallace going in turn 3. He had a thought. He ducked underneath, but Wallace a little bit too strong to turn 4. Had to back off.
Like last week in the Grand National race at Bristol when Dale Earnhardt upset everybody's strategy, and Earnhardt once again is near the front. Tim Richmond is doing the same here. He has led since lap 9. It's difficult to stay on the lead lap. You cannot pace yourself. You cannot take the chance of doing that because he might get you.
Here's Earnhardt underneath Rusty Wallace. He has him. Redmond's going to try to follow him through, and he does make it by as well.
Joe Ruttman and Rusty Wallace, a couple of guys who have gone door handle to door handle in ASA racing a number of times. Both of them also graduates of the Midwest short tracks. They're used to high bank racetracks, but nothing like this. We have an engine apparently letting go in turn number 1, and it looks like the Iron Man, Jack Ingram, a big surprise.
Yes. He had a lot of engine problem early on in the year, but he looked like he had his problem solved. He hasn't had a problem in a long, long time until today. And it looks like it's doggone serious.
Well, Jack Ingram came into today's race as the points leader. He had about a 30-point lead over Jimmy Hensley. He had won 3 times. 15 times out of 19 races. He had finished in the top 10. That ranks him in second, and he's the leading money winner with over $78,000 won. His closest adversary in the points race is Jimmy Hensley, and he's with Jack right now.
We talked about Jimmy Hensley coming out of the car and being relieved by Morgan Shepherd. But Jimmy, your feelings now that you saw the leader in the point standings go up in a puff of smoke, Jack Ingram, does that make you feel a little better?
Well, you know, still a long race. So, you know, we got to finish too. So, you know, hoping everything will go all right.
How about you? Do you feel better now that you've come out of the car?
Yeah, I got a little hot. You know, Morgan said he's going to finish for me. So, hopefully he'll go on finish for me.
Well, he'll be watching right till the drop of the checkered flag, because this maybe could help him get back on top in the points.
We have stayed green, and the battle for second place beginnings to sharpen just a little bit. Everybody has put their pencils into the sharpener, and they're all getting down to the finer points of racing, and looks like they're getting ready to joust. Spin right in the middle.
Right in the front of them,
too. Several cars.
No.
We have a crash on the inside. Couldn't tell exactly from this distance who it was. It looks like Ed Barrier. The leaders are bearing down. Is that Bouchard trying to tiptoe through? Ron Bouchard spins. No hard contact. It looks like from this distance it's the number 88 car of Ken Knight, who spun right between turns 1 and 2. He was right in front of a pack of cars. Other contact, one other car made a significant collision with him, and at this point 09 Willis Blevins in the Hesco car and the number 88 car of Ken Knight. As you can see, significant contact there between 1 and 2.
That was, he really hit him hard. I just could not stop the exclamation. There, he tries to get underneath. We can see Willis try to get underneath him, but he just can't quite make it by. Another foot, he would have made it by, but that foot, the fender stuck out, he hit him, and here's Bouchard in the very back of the screen, spinning to try to dodge all the cars.
Chances are debris, maybe. Ronnie was running pretty well. He was running up in the top 7 or 8 positions. But this will give everybody a chance now to come in and regroup if they need it, and Bouchard probably will find this a very welcome invitation to duck into the pits.
But he can only change 2 tires, and he probably, as Jackie alluded to, when the car spins here, he probably has a flat spot tires. And Tim Richmond, is he going to pit this time? That's the question mark.
He stays out. Looks like Earnhardt is coming in. Waltrip is coming in for the second time in the last 10 laps. Now, last week at Bristol, when Brad Teague crashed, Dale Jarrett flattened all 4 tires as he ran over debris. He had no choice but to change 4 tires. It cost him 2 laps. We're standing by for Ron Bouchard. Hopefully that's not the case. Ronnie is not, yes he has. He has come into the pit area, and at this point difficult to tell exactly what kind of service they're going to perform.
Yes, they're climbing in the back of the 66 car driven by Rusty Wallace, and they are adjusting the chassis of the car, the wedge, or how the car handles. They have bolts back in the back, and they're able to turn those. There are only a few things that you can do to change the setup of this race car. The weight jacks, bending down the rear spoiler, and of course the tires you select are 3 of the more prominent items that you can make changes on. Yes, I'm going to try to talk to Tim Richmond, the leader of the race right now. Tim, this is Benny Parsons up in ESPN. Do you read us?
Yeah, Benny, go ahead. I got you.
Are you ever going to pit?
I don't think so, Benny. I'm having too much fun out here on the racetrack. No reason to come into pit.
Have you got the thing weaned on fuel?
Our crew chief said he thinks as good as the car's running right now, that he's going to take another chance and run to the next caution or to whenever we need fuel. He said there's no reason to mess up a race car that's working as good as this one is. So we're going to stay out here per Harry Hyde.
Okay, Tim, we're watching you. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Benny.
Well, it remains to be seen if that is sound strategy at this point. Looks pretty healthy. Right now, Jack Carruth is with another Jack whose car did not run so healthy today.
Jack Ingram, this is the last place you ever want to watch a race from. What happened?
Well, something happened in the engine. It started, I believe it dropped a valve. We turned a little bit too many RPMs, and we just kind of backing off down the straightaway a little bit so it wouldn't turn so much, and apparently a valve went out of it.
Well, he's out of the race today, but he's not out of the points race, and we'll have more on that as the race progresses. Gentlemen?
Well, another car that may be out of this race, the number 47 car of Ron Bouchard, we are sad to report. We watched Ron run so well the last couple of seasons. He's always a threat to win. He forsake the 6-cylinder for the 8-cylinder today here at Darlington, but it wasn't enough. Debris knocked him out. The heat of summer and the heat of Auto Racing 85 continues. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the Kart Indy cars from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course near Mansfield, Ohio, Lexington, Ohio to be exact, where Mario Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, and Al Unser Sr. will continue their sparring for the 1985 IndyCar Championship. They are in a virtual three-way tie for the points title. That racetrack, of course, very demanding. All three of those guys have good experience in terms of doing well on road courses. That could be a good one. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in the middle of, guess what, the state of Ohio. Right now, Dick Bergman is down in the pit area, and he has rounded up a guy that we are very sorry to see out of this race. We watched him be so competitive the last couple of years, and bad luck continually seems to hound him. That's Ron Bouchard.
And once more, Ronnie Bouchard is behind pit road. What happened, Ronnie?
Well, it looked like the Valvoline Buick might have blown a head gasket. You know, the old car run real well. We started about 15th, and we got up to about 4th, and we kept getting better as we went, and the old motor started to run hot, and it looks like it burned a head gasket.
Is it very hot out there? All the drivers coming out of the cars are really perspiring.
Well, it's pretty hot. You know, the old sun's strong here, and it's very humid, and it gets hot inside them race cars.
Could you see what happened in the crash?
I really couldn't. We went down in a turn, and Darrell flagged that, you know, there was something wrong ahead, and I had to about turn mine sideways to slow down, but I didn't really hit anything, and we just kept getting hotter and hotter. We were scared we'd blow a motor, so we figured we'd better park it.
Well, Ronnie Bouchard behind pit wall today, but he'll be back tomorrow in the Southern 500.
Well, tomorrow we anticipate 70 or 80,000 people, and many of those people have come here one day early because they just love stock car racing, and they're here for the late model sportsman, and more often than not, this is just as exciting of a race as the Grand National race. Now, here are the winners of 1985. We told you earlier there are a large number of them. It's been pretty well balanced among the top runners. Ellis, Jimmy Hensley, and Ingram each have 3 wins. Now, none of those guys are in this race right now. Waltrip, Larry Pearson, and Brett Bodine have won twice. And, of course, Brett's second win coming last week at Bristol. Single winners have been Jeff, that's brother Bodine, Dale Earnhardt, Tim Richmond, and Ronnie Silver. Green flag coming up. You haven't missed anything in the last couple of minutes.
Back to racing, and again, Richmond shoves off. He jumps out to an early lead on Joe Ruttman. But Ruttman has fresher tires than Richmond. We'll see if it makes a difference.
Something, Benny, as I watch this race, it would stand to reason that Ruttman, with all the pit stops we've had, all the opportunities.
If Grand Nationals provide drama, sportsman cars can be heart-stopping. When they attack a place like Darlington, you swallow hard and sit on the edge of your seat. Jack Arute has a report.
Tim Richmond and Joe Ruttman brought the field down for the Pontiac Winner's Circle 200 and proceeded to leave the rest in their exhaust. Richmond showed enough muscle to keep Ruttman at bay until a caution was thrown for Rodney Foucher's spin. The leaders elected to pit except Richmond. His strategy to stay out as long as possible and then duck into the pits for some fuel. His gamble failed, and he was forced to pit under the green later to take on gas. The front spot then went to Ruttman. But on lap 106, Ruttman and Rusty Wallace came together to bring out yet another yellow. Ruttman was out, but Wallace managed to continue. On the restart, Darrell Waltrip worked his way into the front spot. Earnhardt, Brad Teague, Richmond, and Rusty Wallace all applied pressure, though, to Waltrip. By lap 122, a front stretch crash almost cost Darrell any shot at the win. Earnhardt and Richmond weren't as lucky and both tested the Darlington concrete. Darrell drove under the checkered flag, safely the victor, but the battle behind him was a tough one, with Rusty Wallace edging Brad Teague in the closing laps to redeem his afternoon after his earlier spin. Third went to Teague, while Morgan Shepherd, subbing for a fatigued Jimmy Hensley, took fourth, and Larry Pearson rounded out the top 5. For ESPN Speedweek, I'm Jack Arute.